Chapter 4, The Unlikely Spy. Elder Mahen Dilo. When one is old and has no family, the world becomes his only concern. When I joined the Elders Guild, I made Akea my life. To protect this world, I had to come up with the most cunning of methods. I had to use my friends to check my hunches on Nivedon. I had to leave them behind, to let them watch over the ghost town, and to see for themselves if the Nivens were indeed dead. It was more than a moon turn ago when a raven told me that it had spotted a pale-skinned man in Nivedon. I dismissed it because it was widely believed that the town was littered with ghosts. Tales of soldiers passing by the mountains and seeing footsteps, hearing babies crying, and watching trees sway even without the breeze were common gossip. Some even claimed they heard voices rustling in the wind or smoke that came from above the canopies. And then there were the songs that hung in the air. After hearing these tales, everyone soon avoided the ghost town. The strange thing was that ghosts roamed the town even in broad daylight, which was unlike any other haunted place I knew. But these stories made Akeans avoid passing through the ghost town, even if it meant circling the foot of several mountains instead of cutting through the valley to reach the villages around and beyond Nivedon. The elders told me that the time to reclaim the empire was near. We needed allies, as many as we could convince, in the hope of gathering soldiers. The only problem was the Emperor's power to charm everyone across the lands. How could we organize a rebellion and follow through with it at this pace? Only the Nivens could avoid his charm, because unseen, the Emperor would not know how or who to charm. But if we win the support of the ghosts, there could be a chance for us to bring Akea back to its former glory. The rebellion had started in Direla, as the prophecies predicted. But it was also mentioned that when the Direllans marched to fight, the ghosts would rise. I did not exactly know what all this meant, but since, at my age, I might not see another emperor rise to take McQuinn Storm's empire, I would have to make do with the most literal translation that I could think of, that these ghosts are, in fact, the remaining Nivens. The other elders are also working on their schemes, and although some dislike the way I worked, we have the same goal, to take Akea back from McQuinn Storm. In this sense, at least, we were unified. As I rode away from Nivedon, a few of the other elders also began their journey to Direla. The others would march on to Bullocknan. Some would go to the Akea Islands, and one would stay at the foot of Mount Gali, where we always met. I might be brave, the many moon turns have made me that, but the babies' cries still made my hair stand on end. It was disturbing to think of babies as ghosts. I would rather face 1,000 headless ghost men with broken limbs and bloodied faces than be chased away by ghost babies' cries. I ran my hand across my arms to make the fine body hair settle down. I have traveled a long way already. I had to confirm my hunch sooner or later. I stopped and looked around. The clearing I found myself in was an excellent place to rest. Surely, the ghosts would not go this far. Or would they? I climbed down on my horse. "Stay," I told the bay and proceeded to remove the saddle and place it on the ground. I would need to rest for a while. There is no other place to be for now. Something stirred from behind the bushes, and I had to pull my knife loose. I prayed it was an animal because I would have difficulty defending myself if not. On the other hand, if it were one of my friends, whether it was a lion, a tiger, or even a hubbub, a dragon, or a serpetus, I could talk to them and perhaps beg them to spare my life, although in the past, a hubbub proved to be challenging to control. Conversing with them was a probability, but they would never listen to anything. Serpetuses were pretty much the same. But the challenge was actually with dragons. I have never seen one, and sometimes I wonder if there ever were any dragons in the past at all. There were stories about the last great black egg and that the tree runners protected it. Others say that it was protected by its mother dragon before it died. But these dragon stories turned into myths, and even the myth of the last dragon had died as the moon turns came and went, with no signs of these fire-breathing creatures. No one in Akea is old enough to witness any of these stories. I pushed all my thoughts away from my head and focused on the task at hand. I hid behind a tree and waited for whatever it was that was struggling against the bush to come out. A bit of pink flesh poked out from the leaves, and I saw my pig. I sighed in relief. I moved forward as I sheathed the knife back to its scabbard. "Do you have news for me?" I said in a tongue that only animals understood. If Akeans could hear me, they would take me for a fool. These days though, being taken for a fool was far better than being mistaken for a wise man. The former could only care for his survival, but the latter could only end up with his head on a pike if he so much as opened his mouth and spoke his mind, especially in the audience of the emperor. The pig blinked, and for a moment, I thought that she was smiling at me. I could not read her expression. Their words were phrased differently, but it was the gift the gods blessed me with. I could understand animals. I held my palm out open in front of the pig's mouth the way she asked me to, and she spat out a coin. The coin bore the new flag of Akea, which meant that it was only minted this moon turn or 2 moon turns back. What could the coin be doing in the town if no people were living in it? I patted its head. Good job, Red, I told the pig. Someone is chasing Red, the pig told me. Animals used their names on themselves when they spoke to me. I creased my forehead. Who's chasing Red? Soft footsteps. Less than a mile away. A ghost followed the pig. I became anxious. I had been waiting for something like this. I gave instructions to Red and pushed the coin back into her mouth. I saddled my horse and moved away from the tree to hide. For the next few minutes, I waited for the perpetrator's footsteps. Red walked away from me, but I could still spot her from where I was. We both waited in anticipation. The pig turned to the right as though it sensed something. I squinted, but I could not see anything. Suddenly Red was squirming, fighting to keep her mouth closed as though invisible hands were trying to pry her mouth open. Please give it back. A voice said. From where I was, I froze. The voice sounded like it belonged to a little girl. Red started to fight back but took care not to hurt the little ghost girl the way I instructed her not to hurt anyone. I told the pig to give her pursuer a hard time so that whoever he or she may be would be forced to reveal himself or herself. And sure enough, out of thin air, a figure emerged. A little ghost girl. Her blonde hair tumbled as she wrestled Red to get the coin. The girl's body was pale as though it was covered with a grayish residue of sorts. Red relinquished the coin. The girl quickly picked it up and vanished into thin air. My heart was thumping against my ribcage as I grew excited over this discovery. There was proof that the ghosts of Nivedon existed. Now all I had to do was to convince these ghosts, these Nivens, that we had to fight together to overthrow the Emperor. I felt hope rising inside me. Maybe, I would still see peace in the land before my time in Akea was over.